side, getting ready for that transition into turn 7. Again, hard on the curbs, on the brakes here, down the first, up the hill, using up all the track here on the entry, trying not to exceed track limits as we go down the hill. And now going into one of the first hairpins here at Circuit of the Americas. Great place to overtake, braking at the 100th, 5th gear, down the first, very wide again on the entry, and again trying not to exceed track limits coming onto the back straightaway. This is the longest straightaway here at the Circuit of the Americas, so it creates a good opportunity to overtake again into turn 12. Braking just past the 150 sign, hard on the brakes here, 6th gear down the first, big compression here at the apex of 12, back to power, 3rd gear, down the first, big rotation here, and then we get to what is going to be the slowest corner here at Circuit of the Americas. 1st gear, turn 15 here, and then ready to drive into the famous carousel. Triple right-hander. Very hard to get this right. A little bit of push here, car gets a little loose in the middle, back to power, and then ready for turn 19, which it's always a tough corner not to exceed track limits. Race control always watching over us there. Hard on the brakes, down the first again for turn 20, and onto the front straightaway. And that was a lap here at Circuit of the Americas.
Great view of this Cota circuit, courtesy of Jan Halen. Big thanks to him for that. Calvin, you heard Jan mention track limits a couple of times. We sat in on the drivers' meetings. Anytime we come to Cota, that is a topic of discussion. What will the stewards be keeping an eye out for here in this race today?
Well, it seemed like the two critical areas are turn 9, which is towards the end of the S's, and turn 19, which is the second from last corner, which sets you up for that final corner. They're the two corners they said you really have to respect the track limits. Essentially, we date back, it used to be the white line at the edge of the road, the black stuff, and then we were using the curbing, and through 19 it's now beyond the green to the extra stripe there. So everyone's going to try and cut the corners, and in dry conditions it's certainly fair play, and you're going to get grip there. If we get any rain, then suddenly those painted lines could be treacherous.
As mentioned, 38 cars ready to take the green flag, all of them to GT4 specification, but we do have 3 different classes, and these are set by the driver ratings, the FIA driver ratings associated with each driver. And what that means is the equipment is equal, and an AM pairing, if they do the job right, they can be up at the front. In case in point, in qualifying, all 3 classes, Pro-Am, Silver, and Am, represented in the top 3 spots. We already spoke to Jason Hart, his co-driver Matt Travis on the pole. They're a Pro-Am lineup. The silver lineup of Kenny Murillo and Christian Shimshak on the outside of the front row. But how about Michael McAleenan from Motorsports USA taking an Am entry up into 3rd overall to start this race and doing it in very difficult conditions?
Yeah, just a superb run, and the track was literally getting quicker by the second, and it was the last lap flyer by Matt Travis, and his time was some 6 seconds slower to the 1,000ths over his teammate, who qualified just 5 minutes later, ultimately like 20 minutes by the end of the session. But that was how quickly the track was drying out. But it's a real melting pot of the manufacturers. We've got 8 manufacturers in this race, and the top 5 see 5 different brands represented here today.
This has been a good track for NOLA Sport traditionally, as you see the starting grid flash up on the screen there to know where your favorite driver and team are starting in this race. This traditionally, over the last few years, has been the season opener for Pirelli GT4 America, and NOLA Sport has been very good. They've been known for the quick starts that they've been able to get off to, and I think for the rest of the field, seeing them take pole position for both races this weekend, both at the last second, it's worth noting, it has to have them on notice that they might be the favorites.
Well, they're executing. They've got so much experience. Technically, I think they're one of the best teams in terms of their engineering staff there. They always put out a very fast race car. Matt and Jason don't seem to make mistakes. They're a very strong driver combination, but there's a lot of talent in this field, and with this first race, it's the lower graded driver that gets to start the race. If you have equal grading, then it's up to your choice in terms of who goes first and who goes second and who starts tomorrow's race. But we expect in the second half of this race, when the pros get behind the wheel, then the fireworks will really happen.
A couple of other interesting storylines as the field makes its way around on their lone formation lap here this weekend at Cota. mentioned Michael McElween, great qualifying effort to start third overall. Stephen McAleer and Toby Grahovic teaming up in a one-off entry this weekend for Classic BMW here at that team's effectively home circuit. But I was really impressed by our 5th overall starter, second in the AM category, John Jesbray, the youngster who just turned 18, had never been on a track in wet conditions until yesterday, and in mixed conditions this morning turned in a great qualifying effort for smooth racing.
Yeah, superb, just 18 years old, doesn't have a ton of experience, and in those type of conditions, that's really making a statement, not to make a mistake, and to put it that far up the sharp end of the grid. They'll be excited about the start here today, and the conditions look really good. Even though there's some sprinkles out there, we might get through this one and go unscathed in terms of the rain.
Fingers are crossed where weather is concerned, but some cloud cover has rolled in since we started the broadcast, so we'll keep our eyes on the skies, that's for sure. The field starting to form up into rows of 2. It will be Matt Travis leading the way in that NOLA Sport Porsche to the right of the screen. To his outside, Kenny Murillo on the flank. Michael McElween and Stephen McAleer will be row number 2 in McLaren and BMW respectively. That line they cross right there, that is the finish line. That's not where the start is given. Waiting for the green flag. As soon as it's displayed, passing can begin. Green in the air, and look at this field fan out on that long run up to turn 9.
Yeah, 5-6 wide there as you see the green flag fly, and then it's all about funneling down into the turn 1. Matt Travis has the lead. Murillo looks to the outside, can't quite get it to stick. I think Matt Travis is going to hold the lead. They go side by side through 2. That was tight.
Relatively clean opening sequence of quarters. Advantage to Matt Travis over the youngster Kenny Murillo.
Murillo pipped him though. He's got ahead. Outbraved him there down into the brake zone for 3.
Able to get that pass made. Now it's McAleer on the attack. He's taking a look at Matt Travis as well. BMW on Porsche.
Yeah, and it may just be the starting pressures that put that NOLA Sport Porsche with in terms of he may just need to generate that tire pressure and tire temperature to get into the sweet spot. But right now he's on defense.
Great start from Kenny Murillo to get that jump. Here comes McAleer now into the braking zone. Can he get up alongside Travis? Side by side, yes, he gets the job done.
Yeah, talking to Matt Travis at the driver's briefing here yesterday, he said, look out for that classic BMW combination of Grahovic and McAleer. They're going to be awfully tough. And again, Travis electing to go a little bit proactive here in terms of the defending that line down towards the brake zone for turn 12. You see a little bit of a puddle there as they get towards the brake zone. Shouldn't be an issue. Toyota's looking strong there in 4th position.
That's John Jesbray, the youngster we were talking about, with a limited amount of experience to draw upon. Just one season of MX5 Cup racing prior to going GT4 racing. They were really stout, he and his co-driver Kevin Conway, in their debut. They've got all the might of Tony Ave's operation behind that team. Dropping back, look at this battle. All the BMWs, it seems like, in one shot there. You've got McElween and McLaren in the mix. It's dropped back a couple of spots from the start as well.
Miller's had a good run. I think he's gained a couple of spots there at the 94. Sharing that car with Chandler Hull here today for the Auto Technic Racing team. By this stage, these tires, these Pirelli P0s should start to come in a little bit, start to find their sweet spot, feel more comfortable for the drivers.
Gives you a sense of just how long this track is. 3.426 miles, 20 turns. The field comes around for the first time. It is Murillo over McAleer by 0.3 of a second. Travis, the pole sitter, has dropped down into 3rd. John Jesbray up a spot in 4th.
There's McAleer going for the lead.
Oh, look at that strong move there. Side by side through the S's. Who's going to give way?
Well, he was on uncharted territory there. Some of these curves still have a little bit of puddling in there, so you've got to be careful. If you start to use the extremes of the racetrack and get those painted curves, you could suddenly find a little bit of a wet spot there and go for a ride. But McAleer's got the confidence in the car to put it anywhere he wants right now. But Kenny Murillo hanging on.
You can see the windshield wipers on for McAleer.
Oh, big chunk.
Big hit. That's the Not Lad Racing by RS1.
DALTON behind the wheel. This will be a full course yellow for certain. Big hit there.
And that car took a heavy hit into the barrier. There you see it, full course yellow right away. No question about that. Gives Kenny Murillo a bit of a reprieve, at least for the moment. been under a lot of pressure from Stephen McAleer.
Talk about this racetrack line in terms of the great runoff areas that it has, but also the speeds, and with the damp patches you can still cool for a ride and have big consequences like we saw there for Matt.
And you can see the double yellow flag. Safety car will be dispatched to pick up the field as the safety crew attends to the damaged race car of Matt Dalton, P8 in Pirelli GT4 America Sprint X Pro-Am last year. Co-drives with Patrick Gallagher on that team. But definitely heavy impact here in the early going at Circuit of the Americas. Great start from Stephen McAleer, Calvin. Not a surprise. This guy's got a lot of experience in these BMWs and with this team. And like you said, a lot of the drivers up and down the paddock, when they saw this driver lineup announced, a couple of silvers in Drahovic and McAleer, everyone stopped and took notice. These are two very accomplished race car drivers.
I think for Matt Travis, we speculated about maybe the starting tire pressures wasn't giving him the grip he was looking for, but he's so savvy. He recognized that the two teams that are ahead of him are in a different class, and we see someone hit pit lane. That was Murillo.
That was Murillo, so that's a surprise. Getting word from the observers around the track that Matt Dalton has gotten out of that race car, which is very good news. Great to hear that after a heavy impact. But really curious what might be going on with the Murillo car that had the lead prior to this full course yellow. Yes, there is a mandatory pit stop in Pirelli GT4 America competition, but that comes later. There's a specific 10-minute window in which that stop has to occur for the driver change. Not sure what would be bringing that Murillo Racing Mercedes to the pit lane so early.
See it there in the backdrop. Mechanics rushing around to the right side of the car. This was a big impact. And there he is. He's out of the car, thumps the roof, so not happy. I wonder if he got taken out, whether he's just frustrated with a mistake he may have had.
Well, very relieved to see Matt climbing out of that car more or less under his own power. And it seems like his frustration is more a greater concern. Let's take a look at the replay. Oof. Oh my goodness.
I'm not sure whether he got the right rear on the painted curb and just lost the grip, or whether something broke, but that was a massive one.
Well, let's give some credit to Aston Martin Racing for building a safe race car. That was straight into the Armco, upside down on the roof. And Matt Dalton walks away. Very happy to report that. This is the Murillo Racing crew looking at the left rear of the car of Kenny Murillo, son of the team owner. And it looks like Kenny's climbing out.
I would imagine like a half shaft or something may have broken. And with these painted curbs, if you get up on them and spin up one of those rear wheels, that can maybe create an issue. He'll be frustrated with that. There's his father, Ken, who was a great racer himself back in the early 80s Super V days. He was a man on a mission. Absolutely.
Looked like he might be on his way to IndyCar racing at one time. While we have more time to check on the Murillo Racing situation, Amanda's got an update from the Notlad Racing team. Amanda?
Yeah. Well, I'm standing by with teammate Patrick Gallagher, and guys, there was a collective ooh at the replay when seeing the car flip. The communications were knocked out in the car, so you're happy to hear that the driver's okay. What does this mean for your team at this point?
Yeah, I mean, we're really just hoping Matt's all good to go. Obviously, they said he was out of the car. We think, I haven't talked to him yet on the radio or anything. We think it knocked the power out. We do have a second car, but I mean, at this point, it's just about Matt being okay. And, you know, we'll see. The RS1 guys are the best in the business. You know, we'll see what the protocol comes here, you know, what we're going to do. Too early to say. But obviously, I didn't see the replay yet, but it was a big lick, it sounded like, from the team. So really just thinking about Matt, hoping he's okay, and, you know, hopefully we can get the second Belhaven car out and get Matt back in the game. He's doing an awesome job this weekend. Super proud of how far he's come. And obviously something happened there. I have no idea if we got hit, if we made a mistake. You know, I have no idea. I haven't seen anything yet. But super proud of the job he's been doing, and hopefully he is all right.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thanks.
Yeah, looking at it again there in replay, it's kind of the opposite. He wasn't using all of the road, didn't get near the painted curb, and not sure if he was just trying to hang on to the power too long and chase down the car in front of him and just lost grip or what. But that was a bizarre moment.
Well, now that we can report that he is out of the car and apparently relatively unscathed, let's think about the implications of this safety car period for some of these teams. As mentioned, when you're talking about the Pro-Am lineups, it is the lesser rated of the two that start race number 1. It's the opposite tomorrow for race 2. And you look at the qualifying results, race 1 to race 2, and some of the cars that qualified well here today are a little bit further down tomorrow and vice versa. How do you think this shakes out for some of the Pro-Am teams in particular, with many of the lesser-rated drivers now getting a lot of their drive time done here under the safety car?
Yeah, well, that pit stop window opens 25 minutes in, so we're 15 minutes away from that. And typically in a Pro-Am lineup, you want to get the Pro-Am, maximize their speed, give them as many laps as possible. But when you get a team like Matt Travis, Jason Hart, I mean, they're so equally matched. I mean, that's what gives them a great edge in terms of Matt's really not at any huge deficiency. So they'll just try and factor in, will you come out in traffic after a pit stop, make sure that they're not suddenly caught up and losing some time once Jason gets behind the wheel. So as you say, this has really thrown a bit of a wrench in some of the strategy, but I expect to see a lot of the Pro-Am combinations pitting relatively early in that 10-minute window.
Looking at the running order, McAleer leads Travis after the Murillo car pulled into the pits. John Jesbrake, impressive stuff from the M-Class runner, up to 3rd overall. John Miller on a nice charge there. That's one to keep an eye on for sure. Michael McElwain dropping back into the 5th spot. Looking further down the order, any names that jump out to you based on how they qualified and how they're running now?
Well, Kozarov there sits in the 11th position, so expect him to go on the charge here a little bit. I mean, Paul Terry, I mean, he's always one who's ready to get up on the wheel, sits there in 9th. Great run for Sean Gibbons there. That's an awesome run for him. You know, coming off a championship season, different teammate this year, of course, but continues to impress.
Sam Owens, the teammate this year, they look very strong at times at Sonoma, as did that whole NOLA Sport operation, top to bottom. They were very, very good there. I think for the BMW runners, they left Sonoma thinking, well, this track might not really be the best for us, and really we're looking ahead to Cota, and early returns seem to be largely positive. 2 BMWs rather in the top 4. You can make it 3 in the top 6, 4 in the top 7. So I think there's suspicions that maybe a lackluster season opener at Sonoma might be alleviated by the time we get here and through the weekend at Cota.
Yeah, and I think with the cars a little bit heavier than some of its competitors, so it's going to generate the tire load a little bit sooner in the run here. So this might be good for them in terms of any tire deg. Typically we see, even though the rules don't dictate that you can't do a tire change during the pit stop window, you've got 2 sets to do both qualifying and both races. So typically it's 1 set for one day, 1 set for the other. But with the, will anyone sort of like risk, you know, running 2 sets in the dry conditions? You know, that's a big factor. We thought it could be a big factor today if it was raining today, and then 2 sets available for tomorrow. So these conditions, which have surprised everyone that we're seeing the racetrack in such good shape right now, has changed that strategy a little bit as well.
As we mentioned off the top, the rain has affected everything we've done here so far this weekend. As we take a look at the replay of the start, we'll get back to the weather in just a moment. But again, it was Travis leading the field to green, Kenny Murillo to the outside, and you see the cars fanning out. Oh, there was a spin further back that I had not noticed initially. That's one of the FORBUSH cars, another one of the Supras. Have to check in on that in a moment.
Look at that, basically 6 wide then. It's really hard for the leader, and I'll pulse it to Matt Travis to really dictate what position you want to place that car. It looked like Travis had it, but Kenny Murillo just went on the attack and gained that lead by the time they got to turn 3. Then obviously some kind of issue with the Murillo Racing Mercedes AMG right now.
Yeah, hopefully we can get an update on that. But going back to the story of the weather, the conditions in both practices, practice 1 was different than practice 2. Those were different than we saw in qualifying this morning. That's different than we're seeing right here in the race. So from a team perspective, how difficult is it just to feel like you can even make progress on car setup when there's so many variables, weather and track conditions related.
Yeah, I think the flip side of that, the good news is that most of the drivers will experience perfectly dry, damp, and wet conditions over the course of this weekend. So whatever the weather throws at us today or tomorrow, for that fact, you know, I think they will be prepared. But it's very much a guesstimate in terms of what you want for the setup. I think some teams overnight were thinking it was going to be raining for qualifying. Maybe they compromised their setup, went a little bit softer for this morning's qualifying session. Then with it drying out, didn't have the optimum setup.
Taking a look at the B Sport Racing Aston Martin, it is Brian Putt behind the wheel, and his co-driver Kitten Cook is with Amanda.
Well, guys, they started in the 25th position on the grid, now up into the 12th spot. Where have you guys found this advantage early here in the race?
I mean, I think we just got lucky on the timing of the start there. There was a bit of a spread in the back half of the field. There was just a bit of a gap, and when he was trying to catch up, they threw the green. And it seemed like he might have been a gear up on everyone while they were still in second. So he blew past half the field going up the front straightaway back to where he should be. So I think it's going pretty good for him so far.
When you see the advantage that's already been made for your team, how do you look at the back half of the race when you're at the helm?
Well, we just got to pass more people. Hopefully we can pass some more people, get to the lead, and hopefully dethrone the Matt Travis and Jason Hart guys here. They've won here quite a bit, so hopefully we can take it away from them.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's been fun watching Kitten Cook, really enjoying his racing. I think over the last couple of seasons had an impressive career going, mostly supported by Mazda, got him up into prototype racing where he was a class champion at the 24 Hours of Daytona. And since then, the opportunities have been a little bit few and far between, but this opportunity to join up with Brian Putt, this B Sport Racing operation, which Kitten and his wife helped to manage, it seemed like something that's really invigorated him, and it seems like he's always got a smile on his face whenever I see him in the paddock.
He's a great talent, and at one point I was scared that he was going to slip through the racing net and lose that opportunity to showcase what he can do, but I think he's willing to do anything, so whether it's run a team, coach, just be in the network of racing and getting these opportunities with someone like Brian, who certainly had a great TCR championship in the TCR Cup a couple of years ago, making the move to GT4 competition last year with Kenton, and just a great mentor. And you know, when he gets behind the wheel, they had a solid start to the season, currently sit tied for second in points right now, so they're very much in the mix, but they realize they can't allow that NOLA Sport team to get too far ahead in the points, and this is a strong circuit for them.
Well, they were, speaking of B Sport, 5th in points last year, 7 times on the podium, but never that top spot. On one hand, yeah, it's a new team. They had to throw it together kind of last minute in the offseason to get the program going, but I know that they were frustrated leaving last year with good pace, good results, but not that ultimate win that they were searching for.
Yeah, they were knocking on the door, and I think it's only a matter of time now before they break through and get that win. But I think they're not just focused on a victory. I think they really feel that they have a solid team. I believe Eric Peterson is still engineering that squad, who's one of the best in the game. So with that combination, all the pieces in place, the Aston Martin is a really solid performer. We saw that last year in the hands of Michael Dinan in Sprint and Sprint X competition. He and Robbie Foley won a championship. So it's a really solid car, good team. They got the track time now. They've got a solid notebook to work from. So coming back to tracks for the second and be the third time here at Cota, certainly they should be on a better footing.
That's a great point, because we did end up with 2 trips to Circuit of the Americas last year. The COVID-affected season kind of dictated that, and we raced here with very different conditions between the two. It was cold the first time here. It was much warmer the second time around. I think this somewhere between the two. Always challenging for these teams. And the other thing that's been challenging, I think, for the teams in the wet this weekend is the fact that portions of this track were repaved before last year, others weren't. So damp racetracks always present a lot of variables, but when the pavement is shifting, depending on where you are in the track, that definitely throws an extra level of complication into the equation.
Well, essentially the track becomes very polished. I mean, it was built back in 2012, and during that time there's been some grinding because there's been a lot of heaving and bumps developing over the years. But in terms of resurfacing the racetrack, as you said, they did it in patches, and according to the drivers who can test it here in the wet, they said online is very treacherous unless you get to a new part of the pavement, and the grip was good. So again, like when you turn into turn 12, supposedly halfway through there's a change between the old and the new, so you have grip, then you lose it, then through that triple apex that's been resurfaced, so you can run the racing line through there. So these are the notes that the drivers are making during the testing that they did here, and certainly through the first couple of days of this racing weekend.
The barrier repairs continue after the hard crash from Matt Dalton on the second lap of the race. Happy to report that Matt was able to get out of the car okay. Less happy news was the fate of the Murillo racing car, which took the lead, led the first lap, but then came to the pits unexpectedly, and I think Amanda has an update.
Well, came to the pits unexpectedly, and Kenny Murillo is out of the car. And what was the issues that you guys were facing?
Yeah, on the out lap, the pace lap, I had a bunch of alarms saying that we didn't have any oil pressure in the gearbox, so I knew that it was going to be a problem. I kept an eye on the temperature. It wasn't climbing, so it told me that there was no oil circulating through the system, and just got louder and louder. So forced I had to retire the car. You know, the Murillo racing crew don't deserve this kind of luck. So you know, hoping to get back out tomorrow. We'll see what kind of damage was done to the gearbox, but just incredibly grateful for the opportunity to drive the car in the first place. You know, I have Mercedes, AMG, Pirelli, just great partners. Just really just grateful for just the opportunity.
We'll see you tomorrow, Kenny.
Thank you.
Kenny Murillo and Christian Shimshak, quite a pairing in that silver class, but that seems like a bit of a strange malady. Have you heard of anything like that before?
No, not that early in the run as well, so they'll hopefully get to the bottom of it and make that car healthy for tomorrow. But Kenny's kind of the data guy, right? When he's not behind the wheel, I mean, that's his job within the team. So he'll have a good understanding of what's going on, and he and his father and the team will go to work and try and get it back on the grid for tomorrow.
Saw the barrier repair underway.
Getting close to that pit stop window, which is in just under 5 minutes. So
now at the drivers' meeting, they did remind the teams and the drivers that should the full course yellow already be displayed, that they would move back that mandatory pit stop window. Normally it's from when you see 34:59 on the clock down to 25 minutes remaining. But effectively what they will do if this safety car overlaps with that mandatory pit stop window is once we go back green, they'll run a lap and then they'll open the pits for that window.
Right, you have to take the green. You can't suddenly dive in if you're at the tail end of the field, so that's correct. They'll delay it, and then the lap after we go back to green, anyone's welcome to come in, and the 10 minutes will start at that point.
Well, Stephen McAleer out in front, but unfortunately much of this race has been run under yellow. It was an exciting start, though. Matt Travis, the pole sitter, fending off the challenge from Kenny Murillo. Even with his car ailing, he was very strong, able to snag that lead away. And then we saw a bold move out of McAleer to get by Travis for what has turned into the race lead with the issues for the Murillo Mercedes. And they were side by side in a part of the track where, like you pointed out, Stephen was in some uncharted territory, and I think had to ultimately back out of that one.
Yeah, he was, and but willing to put it all on the line. And we don't anticipate this being they didn't make the first rounds, of course, at Sonoma. We don't anticipate them doing much more than this. So when you're doing kind of a one-off, you're willing to take that risk, right? So that's the advantage you have over the competition, particularly going up against the NEWELL Sport team that are not in the same class, thinking of the big picture, of course. And but you can see the teams gearing up. Jerome Blicamo, and we just saw a shot of him, helmet on, getting ready. Tim Pappas had a really nice qualifying run, sits there in the 13th spot. So get Jerome behind the wheel. He won here last year in a GT3 competition with James Safrona, so he knows this circuit well, and he's ready to go.
And you could see a lot of the second drivers already gearing up, getting ready to go when we get back to green. Looks like that pit stop window will be opening shortly, so unfortunately not much racing for driver one in the lineup here today. Hopefully we have a cleaner run in race 2 tomorrow. We do have a red flag now displayed, and that's going to stop the clock here. So what that tells me is this barrier repair is going to take a while, and quite frankly, that doesn't come as a surprise, as big of an impact as we saw Matt Dalton have.
Yeah, and I think there's probably a strategy here looking at the clock in terms of what the stewards are looking at. This is going to eat up much of the time that they'd have for the full race. So let's get this red flag at this point in time, so it allows us to go back to green, and then probably that next lap pit lane should be open.
Yep, I expect you're right. That's how it should be handled. Now we have a moment. I did want to tell a brief story about Michael McAleenan, who's in 5th. We mentioned his great qualifying effort to start 3rd overall. This is an Am entry, and Michael is a lawyer in his day job, but takes his racing extremely seriously and is a big-time athlete as well. Played college baseball in the Pac-12 at both Arizona State and Washington State, and was an avid golfer. He had a single-digit handicap, and then he picked up racing.
Wow.
Funny how that works.
Yeah, seems like he's pretty good at everything. I hate those guys.
Well, very fast for sure for the Motorsport USA team. 5th as it stands after qualifying 3rd, 2nd in the AM category. And we'll have to put the conversation on hold for just a moment as the field is making its way down the pit lane. We will be stepping aside here for a few moments while the barrier repair is completed. But don't go anywhere. As soon as we get the opportunity, as soon as we get the word that we'll be sending cars back out on track, we'll be right back with you for round 3, 3rd race of the Pirelli GT4 America Championship. First race of the weekend here in Circuit of the Americas. Stay with us. Field starting to roll back out onto the racetrack after a lengthy red flag. Thanks for sticking with us, everybody. Back for the third race of the Pirelli GT4 Americas season. First of two this weekend here at Circuit of the Americas. To refresh us on how we got here, the race went green, and immediately Kenny Murillo went on a charge to P1 at the start of the race around the pole sitter Matt Travis. Behind them, Travis and McAleer had a nice battle going on, but on the second lap, there was a heavy crash involving Matt Dalton. That was on the second lap, as mentioned. Here is a replay of that incident. The good news is, despite the fact this was a heavy impact, as mentioned, Matt Dalton was able to walk away from the car unaided. However, the barrier, as you can see, suffered significant damage, and that has led to this red flag period, which has just been lifted. The cars are out behind the safety car. The clock has resumed. And Calvin, we are close to, presumably, the beginning of the pit stop window. Now, the clock at the moment is showing 1 hour and 5 minutes. I suspect that's going to be adjusted here at some point. We'll keep an eye out for that. But the way that it was looking is we'll have this one parade lap here. We'll go back to green, and I think we should be right into the start of the pit stop window adjusted for this safety car and red flag.
Yeah, unusual circumstances. There's some protocol in place if there's a red and things like that. But I think what we're going to see is one lap of green, and then the pit window will open. That would be the cleanest way of doing this. Otherwise, it would be a disadvantage for certain people, depending on track position. So anticipate seeing the green, and then you'll have a flood of cars coming in. Not everyone. There may be some teams that like to try and stay on that clean racetrack and try and gap the field a little bit.
So the lineup when we resume racing, we'll see Stephen McAleer leading the field to green. He qualified 4th, so up 3 spots here in the early going. Matt Travis runs in 2nd and leads in the Pro-Am category. The Am leader is 3rd overall. That's John Jesbray for Smooge Racing. Then it's John Miller, Michael McAleenan, James Clay, Tom Capizzi, Sean Gibbons, Paul Terry, and Tim Barber, the top 10 as they run. One other storyline to clean up was the Murillo racing car, which started on the outside of the front row, got off to a great start with Kenny Murillo behind the wheel, but pitted, and evidently problems with the gearbox that ultimately ended their day early.
Yeah, and that's a real shame. It's been great to see them battle out. So the real key for them is obviously getting the car back to the paddock, getting it back to 100% to see the start tomorrow. But thinking about the strategy here, Stephen McAleer, we talk about the strong combination of he and Topi Grahovic. He may be one of the cars or one of the teams that like to stay out for the effectively 10 minutes of the window. You got to be in pit lane before that 10 minutes runs out. Don't have to complete service, but before the 10-minute window runs out. So we'll get time on that when that opens, and 10 minutes later you have to be on pit lane. Cross that stripe, otherwise you're going to run afoul of the penalties.
You can see the lights are off on the safety car, and it's starting to accelerate away. This is that part of the track where the pace car will start to move ahead of the field, which now falls under the control of Stephen McAleer. Everyone bunching up behind, and after a lengthy delay, we're about to go racing. Quickly, Cal, what does a delay like that do to you as a driver?
Well, there's obviously a degree of anxiety. I mean, I think most importantly is tire pressures. Everything's cooled down a little bit, so these first lap or two is going to be a little bit sketchy.
The rain in the forecast has held off for now. Just a few sprinkles a little bit earlier, but we are back under green flag conditions. Stephen McAleer leading the field around turn 20, takes the green flag. In hot pursuit, it's Matt Travis, John Jesbray, dropping a bit further back, John Miller, and Michael McElwain in single file, at least through the top 10 coming up the hill.
Yeah, and 3 different classes there, so I don't think any one of these 3 are going to get too feisty. But you can see McAleer, they're really struggling to get the grip in that BMW. Looks like Travis's car is hooked up a little bit quicker, unlike the initial start here about an hour ago.
That was my thought as well. Travis started on pole, but dropped a couple of spots in the opening lap and a half, but now on the attack, and John Jesbray, very strong from that Smooge Racing team, but keep an eye out on that BMW right behind. John Miller charging his way forward as well.
Yeah, he's going to be chasing hard because his class leader right now is the overall leader in Stephen McAleer. Silver combinations in those 2 cars.
Up all over these curves here at Circuit of the Americas, coming around to complete the opening lap following that red flag, and following this first lap under green. We will see the pit lane open.
Tight there, James Clay barrels down the inside into the brake zone for turn 11, takes that position away from the McLaren.
Yeah, that's 5th overall, not a class battle. James Clay 2nd in Pro-Am. He's chasing Matt Travis for honors in that class. There is the sign. Pit window is open. And now we'll see who the early takers might be, as here comes Jesbray around the outside of Travis.
And Miller there looking to see if the door would open for him as well. So Travis, he may elect to pit right now.
Jason Hart, the second driver in that NOLA Sport pairing, on baby watch at the moment, but all eyes focused on his NOLA Sport car.
Travis may be thinking, I've got to get Jason Hart in the car in case he gets the call from the wife, so that might be the safer bet.
That's right. And look at James Clay. He has caught this group up ahead of him, made that pass on McEleenan earlier in the lap, and has already run down the back of the 4th place car in Miller.
Yeah, and he's pushing hard, and by doing that, it really helps because you get an extra load in that tire, starting to generate some temperature and air pressure. Who dives the pit lane? Travis comes. Jesbray does as well, as we expected. McAleer stays out. So does Miller. So does Clay.
82 seconds, the pit lane delta for Pirelli GT4 America this year, or this weekend rather, at Circuit of the Americas. No tire changes, just the driver change, but you got to get it perfect. We've seen races won and lost with that pit stop and driver exchange.
Yeah, there should be ample time for a driver change to happen. No other service. They can do some tire pressures, things like that, but it's really about managing the clock, identifying through the software when you need to release that car, not leave too much time on the table. That 82-second window is what you're looking for. You do have a 1-second joker you can work with just one of the 2 races here this weekend.
A lot of takers here early. Is that because in our Pro-Am lineups we've got the lower graded drivers starting the race?
Yeah, that's what we expected. It's really when you got an even combination like McAleer and Grahovic that you can kind of use this opportunity with a clear racetrack to lay down some hot laps and do kind of that overcut in terms of the strategy.
Well, one thing that's going to be unique about this race today, we mentioned no tire changes in Pirelli GT4 America, but because of all the laps that were run under yellow, normally that conservation that the first driver has to do to ensure that the second driver in the car still has tires to work with, that's out the window. You can go full on, I think, for the remaining 29 minutes and change.
Yeah, you can. It should be good for Jason Hart. He should have a really solid car. Lots of grip left in those Pirelli P0s.
And good as well for those that opted to stay out on track. They can focus now on turning in lap times and try and build a gap that they can take advantage of, if at all possible, during this pit stop sequence. So McAleer, Miller are the ones that are out in front at the moment. James Clay also has stayed out. Tim Barber has stayed out. So these are primarily our silver class entries, which makes a lot of sense for the reasons we mentioned earlier.
Yeah, you're at no disadvantage to keep the driver out there. He's in a rhythm, just try and establish a bit of a gap and just see how it plays out. Obviously, with the Pro-Am combinations, you want to get that Pro in, maximize their seat time, their advantage that they have to get the best end result.
This is John Miller driving for the Bimmer World team. Spent the last couple of seasons with ST Racing in this same model of BMW, the M4 GT4. Very successful, winning a lot of races with that operation over the last 2 seasons.
Yeah, and doing a lot of running in Europe alongside Chandler Hull, who he runs with here today. So they'll know each other well, developing some great chemistry. You see a lap later. This is also a good strategy. Just get one more lap whilst the track's relatively clean, and pit lane will be a little bit more open. It won't be as congested on this second lap around.
Triple Eight car into the pits. Also saw Jason Bell in the GMG Aston Martin. Speaking of ST Racing, you see one of their BMWs on the screen right there, still making their way around. Here is the GMG crew going to work, and it's Andrew Davis strapping in.
Yeah, and this is going to be a great little fight. When you see guys like Andrew Davis, Jess Westfeld going to jump aboard the 888 machine, this is going to be a great shootout here at the end.
And Vesko Kozarov was in the 888, which is a Reardon Racing entered Audi. Accomplished driver in his own right. You can turn that over to Jeff Westphal, and you're doing something right.
You really are. Jeff's got a wonderful career going, is running in multiple championships globally, as well as here in North America. and just always gets the job done. He's another one of those drivers we talk about with so much talent. Were they going to slip through the net? Well, no. Jeff Westphal is now getting ample opportunities to showcase what he can do.
McAleer, Miller, Clay, Barber still out on the track. McAleenan as well. Then we get into some of the AM combinations with Sean Gibbons. There's a good battle leaving the pits and arriving on the scene. The Stephen Cameron Racing BMW with warmed up tires.
They'll cool off a little bit during that pit stop, so you probably lose 20, 30 degrees of tire temperature there, just sitting still for half a minute or so.
It's Greg Leofouge now piloting that car. Sean Quinlan started the race. What a pairing those two have turned into.
Sprint X Championship a couple of years ago, and that's just really given Sean the confidence. And Stephen Cameron was a great racer himself, just so much experience. And he's one of those guys who never lets up. He's always pushing hard, always trying to tweak and work on that race car and make it the best he can for his drivers.
So let's see, the pit window came open, what, about 5 minutes ago, just a little bit more delayed from the usual. So still an opportunity here for those that have elected to continue to run to turn in fast laps. If you are Stephen McAleer, John Miller, James Clay, what are you focusing on in this portion of the race?
Well, I think just really just trying to get the hammer down, just try and really, with the clean racetrack now, try and get a good feel for it. Maybe they can do a tire pressure adjustment when they do finally hit the pit stop. But 22 minutes around there, I think, is about when this pit stop window will close. And you've got to make sure you don't cut it too close on that. It's a long lap here, so sometimes you have to give it up a little bit.
Michael McAleenan now in the pits, Bryson Liu and Paul Sparta. Bryson Liu from ST Racing, Paul Sparta, the Random Vandals team. They're in the pits working on their changeover.
Looking at some of these times, Quinlan to Leofouge, that time was 81.9, so a tenth of a second underneath the threshold. But again, they get a 1 second joker, as we call it. You can be up to 1 second underneath that minimum stop time, but just once per weekend for the two events, you just get one chance at that.
Right, so tomorrow they've got to be perfect.
Got to be perfect.
Can't cut it that close. Get away with this one here today, hoping to use that to their advantage. Look at this little scrap going on here. Cool look at the new Evo version of the KTM Crossbow GT4. Is that Nikolai Elganian driving here? Or no, Mads Siljehaug, his Norwegian co-driver, Ryder Engineering factory driver, who was doing his rain dance, he told me. Didn't get a chance, though, to run in the rain here in the race, but he certainly would have welcomed that opportunity in that very unique GT4 car.
Yeah, he is really quick. Just great to see that combination. I think he and Elganian are a really strong combination. Nikolai didn't have the best qualifying run to start this race from, but and now we see them starting to peel off. So McAleer is in, Miller is coming as well. So just not quite enough time on the board to do one additional lap. I think it was just under 22 minutes would be the number that you could look at, but it's over a 2-minute lap here.
Not willing to take any more of a risk. Our leaders coming into the pits, and then we'll see how the strategy plays out, if it favors those that ran long or those that opted to come in early.
Yeah, looking at the times, a lot of people left 2 or 3 seconds on the board, so that's why guys like Stephen Cameron really try and find that extra edge in their strategy and willing to make that call. It's all about really doing your homework during the course of the practice sessions, getting the car set up, getting that release point done. So the driver change, there should be plenty of time unless you have an absolute catastrophe to get this driver change done. Then it's all about the releasing of the car from the pit box.
Saw a moment ago John Miller with his Star Wars themed helmet helping his co-driver Chandler Hull in. Busy pit lane here. Looks like that car is just sitting and waiting. That's what you want to see. You get that done. Now you're just waiting to be released so you don't run afoul of the minimum pit stop delta. Use the Member World machine.
Good stop there. I think up ahead that may have been Grahovic leaving his pit box as well. So here comes Jason Hart on the front straightaway.
Yeah, this is what we're going to want to keep an eye on. How much of a gap were the BMWs able to build, and is it going to pay off? Here comes Hart on a charge.
Yeah, on the undercut basically is what we call it when you're one of the first of the pit stoppers, which Travis was. His teammate now behind the wheel, and he's in a rhythm. He's got a bit more tire temperature than the cars that just left pit lane. He's got to go on the attack now, but still think about the big picture in terms of class position. Who is he fighting right now? Both the cars up ahead of him, I believe, a silver combination, right?
Chandler Hall, John Miller, certainly.
And certainly McAleer and Grahovic.
Yes.
So even though Jason Hart wants that track position, can't afford to get too feisty here.
Putting a lot of pressure on the back of that BMW. Ooh. Look how sideways he was using all those curves. And if you watched races at Circuit of the Americas before, you know track limits are a point of emphasis. But the way that the S's have been handled, based on the way the stewards were talking about it, as Hart takes a peek up the inside, does draw alongside, able to get that power down, and I think he's going to take that spot.
He does, takes it away from Chandler Hall there.
But in that part of the track through the S's there, basically they were told, what, keep at least one tire on the curbs and you're good, even if you're straddling them to the inside. Oh, Hull's not done with this. He wants that spot back. Hart, though, he's going to try and attack for the overall lead, and you could put that NOLA Sport car through to P1.
Wow, he's in a hurry. He's got a lot of things on his mind as well. Hopefully he can shut all that wife and baby stuff out of his mind here for the next 20 minutes or so and bring home another victory for this team. Won 2 times here in the early rounds last championship season, swept Sonoma weekend, had the points lead, and looking awfully tough to beat right now.
Impressive stuff. That was the pole-sitting car, and they will be on pole for race 2 tomorrow as well. That courtesy of a great lap in qualifying from this man, Jason Hart. I know they don't like us reminding them, but they have the last 2 seasons had excellent starts, only to fade late and finish second in the championship both years. A lot of focus is being put by that NOLA Sport team on continuing the momentum throughout the course of the season. They want that title here, the 3rd year working as a tandem.
They do, and they'll have learned a lot, and they're executing really well. I think the pressure, got to them a little bit, and it's amazing how you suddenly lose that momentum. As here's a change for position here, 2nd overall. That's the 28 car. Up in position there. Really nice run for these guys here today as well. Great battles. BMW's fighting it out, but Porsche leads. BMW's run 2nd, 3rd, and 4th.
Yeah, definitely great to see the rebound from the BMW camp. They were, to a man and woman for that matter, quite dispirited leaving Sonoma. Let's take a look at the replay here. This was Jason Hart. Look how sideways he is here through the S's.
Yeah, just gets up on the curbs there, and it just hooks a little bit. Then makes the move down to the inside on Chandler Hall. This is turn 11, really a low-speed corner, about 40 miles an hour coming off there. Plays him nicely, but the man on the move right now is Ryan Eversley aboard that number 28 ST Racing BMW. Now leading the BMW brigade up to 2nd.
19 minutes left in this race. It's been a strange one. Again, if you're just joining us, we had just over a lap of racing before there was a heavy incident. Here's a move up the inside. Chandler Hull attacking on Toby Grahovic. That is impressive. Chandler Hull lacks the experience of Toby. Look at Toby fighting back. The track comes back to him at this part of the racetrack.
Yeah, and he's one of the cleanest drivers out there. Quick correction on Eversley. They'd actually gone down a lap or 2, so he's just trying to fight to get back in the game here. So even though he's got a very fast car, they had some delays here earlier in the race. So that was not a battle for position that Eversley took.
And that's the car just up the road from these two, the ST Racing car with the Vincent Van Gogh livery on that car. He's paired up with Joe Rubo, who he's worked with for a number of years in Ferrari Challenge. Chandler Hull continuing to pressure Toby Grahovic, then dropping back Nick Gallant here in the number 36 car, driving with James Clay, who was one of the ones that ran long in that opening stint. That's a pairing to keep an eye on. Nick's had some success in other championships, and teaming up with James definitely could be force to be reckoned with. And this is the Smooth Racing car that had that great opening stint with John Jesbray driving. Right now, former NASCAR Cup Series Rookie of the Year, Kevin Conway, piloting that machine. That's the car in the middle of the frame, the Toyota Supra.
Yes, looking really strong. Got a great engineer there. Thomas Knapp is engineering this car for Tony Arby, who's kind of spearheading the Smooth Racing team. But look at this run by that Kenton Cook down the inside.
It sure is.
Wow, that was a nice move.
Amanda talked to him earlier. What did he say? His goal when he gets in the car, pass more cars. Well, mission accomplished there, Kitten. He's on the charge.
That was awesome. And talking to some of the Toyota runners, we spoke to the FORBUSH racing team. They've got Tom Long as part of their driver coach, and he also drives the car. He said, right now with the Toyota, we're really working on rear grip. It's got plenty of front grip, but the rear we need to settle down a little bit. So maybe that's why Kevin Conway couldn't attack the S's quite as hard as Kenton Cook could right there.
And he's under attack here. This is Jerome Bleekemolen fighting at the back half of the top 10. Jerome shares that car with Tim Pappas, and one of the fastest guys in a GT car you'll find anywhere on the planet. Races anything and everything, and you can see why he's so coveted as a pro driver in a Pro-Am lineup, making that move up another position.
Yeah, just so much experience, and he's plug and play. You just know he's going to take the car to the front and maximize the result that you potentially have for the weekend. He's driven with Tim for many years now, and they're just a wonderful relationship, total belief in each other, and they're great to see that Black Swan racing team this year.
It's the 54 Porsche Cayman, side by side just up the road is Kenton Cook trying to take another spot from Nick Gallant. Right behind, Bleekemolen is going to watch this one with great interest. Gallant forced wide, and that's going to open up the door perhaps for Bleekemolen to go on the attack. But as I say that, the track comes right back to Gallant, and he goes on the counterattack.
It's a great little battle there. And you look at the different marques that were involved as well. BMWs, the Aston, the Toyota, Porsche. It's a real, oh, that's a big sideways moment there from Gallant as he comes through turn 19.
Bleekemolen able to take advantage. Conway trying to find a way past side by side through turn 20. And out onto the pit straight, 15 minutes left. We lost a lot of this race due to the yellow flag. But trying to make up for it. The drivers, second drivers in these lineups. Here comes Conway working on Gallant now.
Going pretty deep. Toyota has been strong, really impressive in the early races of this season, both in multiple championships.
I mean, look at the cars it's competing against, and it's the newest, basically, of just about all of these GT4 cars. Hasn't been run a whole lot, but to your point, it's been strong right out of the box.
Yeah, when you look at the price point of the actual car in road-going trim, like 60 to 70K versus a lot more high-priced cars out there, is really a testimony to Toyota and TRD, what they've been able to do with that platform and make it so competitive this early in its running. Up front, Jason Hart doing what we've seen so many times over the last 2 or 3 seasons, just dominating, executing, ticking all of the boxes. 14 minutes away from another checkered flag.
Look at this battle further back. Cars everywhere, side by side, fighting for position. I think Kevin Conway's at the front of that line. This is Ryan Eversley, not on the lead lap, as you mentioned. Something waylaid this car early on. Oh, I'm sorry, we're actually looking at the sister car. Nope, that is Eversley. Chandler Hull is right behind in the other BMW, and then we've got Toby Grahovic in behind. So Chandler Hull looks like has been able to make some progress, shares that car with John Miller.
Yeah, nice solid run, and as he gets more and more seat time, I mean, the raw talent has always been there, and now as he starts to get more seat time, just starting to really execute these races, the little mistakes that he's maybe making early in his career, Ryan, he's really starting to put to one side and just putting together tremendous performances. A little bit wide there, Grahovic. Don't want to get too wide, otherwise Jerome Bleekemolen will pounce.
Dutchman is coming, there's no question about that. Bleekemolen is up to 5th now. Actually make it 4th because he's gotten around Kenton Cook on this lap. So that's in the overall running. He is currently now 2nd in the Pro-Am and looking for one more spot overall. He's got to run down Hart, though, if he's looking for the lead in the class.
Yeah, and but he's not going to give up. He's going to keep fighting, barrels it down there, real funnel effect down at the inside, takes another position. Really strong run here from Jerome.
He is a master of his class. It is amazing to watch him knife his way through a field. It seems like every week we see him do this, and it doesn't surprise you at all to see him making up huge amounts of ground during his stint, but boy, he got awfully sideways there, and that's going to let the BMW back into the mix.
Yeah, they just asked for a little bit too much from the rear tire there, and it gave up on him a little bit, and that's kind of a little bit of an alarm bell in his head right now. he had superb confidence to really force it, and a moment like that is suddenly, okay, maybe I'll pick the tire pressure a little bit, got to be careful.
All of this is happening about 9 seconds behind the overall leader and also Liqui-Moly's class leader. Here comes Kitten Cook now, working his way up the inside of Toby Grahovic, and he's going to make that pass. Another spot for him.
And Toby, though, immediately tucks into the draft there, tries to get the slipstream down this long back straightaway. See if he can get in position into the brake zone. Slips it to the inside. Is going to be a braking deal. Liqui-Moly from a long way back. Doesn't think about it this time.
Liqui-Moly settling in behind Chandler Hull, takes a peek to the inside here, might try and surprise him. Look at that, able to slip to the inside and complete the pass.
Really nice side-by-side there between Cook and Grahovic as well through turn 12, through the brake zone. Nice clean driving. That part of the racetrack really, and this one as well, turn 15, really slow corner, but that's become a really prime overtaking opportunity. So when we get down to the last lap or two, don't be surprised to see someone stuff it down the inside there.
So now move Liqui-Moly up another spot, move Kitten Cook up another spot. Jason Hart well out in front of this. He's got an 8-second lead at least last time by, and holding on to that pretty handily with 10 minutes to go, but from second on back, it's been a dogfight, Cal.
It has, and someone who's gradually emerging in the picture there is Aaron Povoledo, having a nice run, currently in the 6th position, running with the Rentec team. Has experience dating back about a decade ago in World Challenge competition, ran with the Capex team, finished second in the Touring Car Championship in 2011.
Aaron driving the Mercedes, you saw go through the shot just a moment ago. Really nice run for him, up 13 spots in this race.
Qualified well for tomorrow as well, so could be a strong weekend for that group.
Kevin Conway running 8th at the moment. That is the leader in the AM class, courtesy of the great opening stint and qualifying effort for John Jesbray. Go back quite a ways to find second in the AM runners. It's already back in 17th overall. So Kevin Conway doing exactly what he needs to do. No reason to fight with these other cars. They're in line for another class win. They picked up their first at Sonoma.
Yeah, he is, and there's that pass we talked about. Povoledo on the margin, gone inside of Toby Grahovic. So Grahovic's fading here a little bit. I wonder if they've just overshot the tire pressures a little bit, if he's struggling for grip here in the last moments of the race.
Definitely a possibility. Again, we talked about it. It's been raining all weekend long. Conditions have been different session to session, so trying to hit the setup just right in the unknown conditions has been a challenge.
Astro DeBette's down to the inside, I think.
Yeah, that's the Autotechnic BMW. Going to pick up another spot on the A-Wing. Toby Grahovic, well, I spoke too soon. Toby, a cool customer, is able to hold off the attack for the moment, but that's not done yet.
This is the part of the racetrack, turn 15. You saw Toby there kind of take the middle of the road. He didn't use all of the exit entry room that you have there to try and thwart that inside move that John may have been thinking about. Love this sequence of corners here. There's triple apexer, then it sweeps downhill, just beautiful rhythm before you tuck it back in. It reminds you of the Indianapolis turn at Le Mans. Look how tight it is there, almost trading paint as they come off 19. Pestro DeBette's down to the inside.
Even one more spot, but here comes Toby Grahovic, not willing to give it up easily. Gotta love the fight in Toby. He does not relinquish a position without a fight.
He's a great racer. He really does a tremendous job. Keeps it clean. And I think over the years, if he'd had a bit more aggression, maybe a few more results, but maybe a few more damaged race cars as well. So he's able to ride that fine balance very nicely.
It's hard to fault him. You look at his resume, and it is sterling from club level racing up to the pro class. Simply always a threat in a BMW, no matter talking about touring cars or GT cars.
The one thing we've touched on a few times here in the last 10 minutes or so is the multi-class racing is for the driver, the psyche. When you're racing, you see a car, you want to pass it, right? Or you want to defend from it, but identifying what class they're in, having the team, problem there for Cook, because he got a cut down tire really wide there. I wonder if he's lost the front end on that race car in some way. Really to be struggling for grip through that corner.
Stacking up the field behind him here. Kevin Conway right in the middle of things. Here comes Another one of the Bimmer World machines up the inside. It's another spot there. Not poor position in class. It's Bill Oberlin.
Come from deep in the pack.
Yeah.
James Walker haven't had the best qualifying runs here this weekend. Bill is deep in the pack to start tomorrow's race as well. Elected to, with the tricky conditions, qualify and use tires for tomorrow. It didn't work out, so he's got a lot of work to do in the first 35 minutes tomorrow.
Saw Povolato move to the inside of Chandler Hull. It was 3 wide there for a moment. Not sure what's going on with that Aston, but you're right, something does seem amiss.
Yeah, he's backing up. He suddenly went through that right-hander at the end of the S's there and just lost the front end, went really wide, and now just seems to be trying to hang on.
Long way to go, 6.5 minutes with an ailing race car.
And a ton of time, so you come down pit lane, you're going to lose a bundle, so there's a chance he'll try and stay out there and just try and go into damage control in terms of the points limitation deficit.
Up front, this is our leader coming by to complete the 19th lap of this race. Jason Hart took over from Matt Travis. He's out in front. This is not for position. As mentioned, the ST Racing BMW had a problem that cost them a lap early on. This, however, is for an overall position. Up the inside, Chandler Hull is going to give way to John Capestro Dubets. JCD up another position.
What a run. Really impressive. This is one of the best runs I've seen him have. Not been here all season, and to come back and make this sort of statement is pretty cool. It's a really good team. Really run at top-notch level, and got the setup for today's conditions anyway.
Kevin Conway in the Supra trying to hold off the GMG Racing Aston Martin this year. Andrew Davis sharing with Jason Bell. They've sampled a number of these GT4 cars, and I think from what Andrew told me, Jason really likes this Aston Martin. For whatever reason, it clicked right away, and we've seen some good results going back to Sonoma. Andrew Davis, a very steady hand, fast race car driver with a lot of experience, takes a peek up the inside, and Kevin Conway not going to fight because he is the M-Class leader with absolutely nothing to gain from battling too hard with Davis, but looked like Davis couldn't quite get the power down quick enough and lost some ground there on the straightaway.
So he's got some good horsepower there to stretch his legs there a little bit and gap Andrew a little bit down the middle part of the straightaway at least.
It's frustrating for Andrew because he'd love to clear this out-of-class car. Still counts for the overall spot, but the car he's chasing for 5th in Pro-Am is, well, this battle right here. Bill Oberlin on the move, able to make a pass around Chandler Hull, who has dropped off just a little bit over the course of this lap.
He's a pretty feisty Bill Oberlin right now. I think he's pretty frustrated by what happened in qualifying, both for James and himself here this morning, but get Bill behind the wheel of a BMW, and a certain magic seems to happen every time.
Yeah, 4 minutes to go. He had something of an invisible weekend at Sonoma, and that, to your point, does not happen often with Bill Oberlin. And the bit is between his teeth now as he tries to lodge a good result here. Probably the first, quite frankly, of the season for that pairing of Oberlin and James Walker. Jason Hart out in front. The man giving chase is the driver of this Cayman here, Jerome Bleekemolen.
And I think for Ryan Eversley, showcasing his pace here, he'll be a little bit frustrated, but nonetheless, again, he's demonstrating, give him a good car, he's going to run it at the front of the pack, so nice to see.
At the Open, we talked about how there were 3 different classes represented in the top 3 in qualifying. Well, Pro-Am has taken now the top 5 spots overall. The top silver runner is Chandler Hull. He's running 6th overall. He's lost an overall position to Bill Oberlin, as we chronicled. But the next closest in the silver category is Jeff Westphal, running in 9th.
Running some good lap times, though, so enough time on the board for him to make any more progress, but a nice solid start to his campaign.
Andrew Davis would love to get this pass made.
There's going to be a similar cut and paste of an acceleration on which the Toyota may win once again here off of turn 11.
Just like the last time, Davis was able to get alongside, but could match the punch out of the corner of the Supra.
The gear ratio as well, obviously with the different manufacturers, you have different gear ratios, so maybe that turn 11 just allows that Toyota to get out in the same gear, whereas maybe Andrew's having to maybe grab that higher gear a little bit sooner, just get out the torque curve a little bit. But nonetheless, this Toyota is merely making a statement here in its early days of racing. I think Toyota in general, I mean, TRD have got their driver development program going on through the various ranks in SRO competition, which is wonderful to see.
Side by side here, you wouldn't believe that this was not for a class position as close as these two have been. I think now the track favors Andrew Davis, and he does complete the pass on Kevin Conway. Coming by to take the white flag is Jason Hart. Down under 2 minutes remaining. It's been a near flawless drive for Jason ever since taking over. Matt Travis turned the car over to Jason early in the pit cycle, so he did have to make a couple of passes on cars leaving the pits right after the pit stop window closed, but since then, no one has been able to match Jason's pace.
Yeah, I'm curious to see at the checkered flag if he just hits the track exit and heads to Dallas.
He was telling us, if you missed it at the Open, he mentioned on the broadcast that his wife is expecting quite possibly any minute, and he's been checking all the flight schedules out of Austin and to get back home to Dallas to be there if at all possible. So, without a doubt, he's got an eye on the sky, not just because of the weather that's been hovering over Austin over the last couple of days.
And what a surprise this is to be this late in the day with no real precipitation, Ryan. I mean, based on the weather forecast that we've been seeing, they talk about 3, 4, maybe 5 inches of rain over a 24-hour period. And it's a wet racetrack when we arrived this morning, but it's dried out, and so far it's stayed dry.
It's a little bit tight there on the exit, and there goes one of the grounds track signs.
Yeah, I think he reacted to the little bobble on the inside of it. Used a bit more road on the exit of turn 11.
It was Oberlin fighting with Capestro Dubets, I think, over the 4th position. We've talked about him a little bit. Quietly impressive run from Aaron Povoleto up to 3rd overall and in class for that Rentec team. Really curious to see what they can do with a better starting position for tomorrow. Nice clean run up to 3rd. Looks like Andrew Davis just made that pass there on Chandler Holt for 6th overall, but not for a class position. However, as far as the overall is concerned, it's been all NOLA Sport. Poles for both races here at Circuit of the Americas. A nice opening stint from pole for Matt Travis, but Jason Hart able to close it off, and they win for the 3rd time this season. Jason Hart, Matt Travis, and NOLA Sport pick up race 1 at Circuit of the Americas. Jerome Bleekemolen will cross the line in 2nd. Aaron Povoleto running in 3rd. Bill Oberlin did make the pass on JCD up to 4th overall and in Pro-Am. Drops Capestro Dubets down to 5th. Andrew Davis up in 6th. Chandler Holt gets the win in the silver category, sharing with John Miller and Kevin Conway and John Jesbray for Smooge Racing, another win in just their 2nd race as a team.
Great performances there in a pretty complicated race in many ways in terms of what did you go in the race with? Did you go for a totally dry setup? What was the weather going to do? We had the red flag. How do you adjust your tire pressures for the restart? What is the strategy in terms of making that mandatory pit stop? So it was a juggle, but some great performances.
Now this track, it's a home track for both Hart and Travis. They're both Texans. And it seems like they ruled this place. For whatever reason, the last couple of years that we've come here, they have been the team you need to go through if you're going to win in Pirelli GT4 America competition. I don't know what it is. The BOP changes. The cars aren't quite the same year to year, weekend to weekend. But they've got the answers, it seems like, every single time.
And again, I think the execution of the team was amply displayed in qualifying this morning by both their drivers grabbing the pole positions on the ultimate lap in terms of timing it so you can get that last lap in, getting the clear racetrack, and then the drivers doing their job as well with no mistakes.
A couple of other results from the back half of the top 10. Talked about the charge from Jeff Westphal. He's got up to 9th. 2nd in the silver category. And how about Spencer Pumpelly? Gets TRG into the top 10, 7th in Pro-Am, and had a great qualifying effort for race 2 tomorrow. That's another team and car to keep an eye on.
Yeah, Spencer in the Cayman is pretty special, right? So another great run. A lot of great charges through the field. Didn't have a ton of time to work with that pit stop window being pushed a little bit later into the race. Didn't give these pros as much meat on the bone as they normally have time-wise.
The CrowdStrike fastest lap of the race went to Greg Leofouge in the Stephen Cameron Racing BMW, a 2:17.317. Not the result that they were looking for. Not quite sure what happened with them. And we saw Sean Quinlan mixing it up a little bit earlier in his stint. But clearly pacing that car, and that at least is encouraging looking ahead to tomorrow.
Yeah, it is, because they had a really good pit stop, so I'm not quite sure why they tumbled down the order, unless there was an issue earlier on and he was a lap down or something.
Here are the results. As mentioned, Jason Hart, Matt Travis pick up the race win by 7.756 seconds over Tim Pappas and Jerome Bleekemolen from Black Swan. Ross CHOUEST and Aaron Povolato teaming up for Rintec to come home 3rd overall and in the Pro-Am category. Top 6 positions overall all go to Pro-Am class runners. Congratulations to all of them for solid efforts here in race 1 of the weekend today. Class winner in the silver category goes to Chandler Hull and John Miller. Kevin Conway and John Jesbray, the winners in the AM class, and another top 10 overall finish for them after an excellent qualifying effort from John. Curious to see what they can do in race 2 tomorrow.
Well, the Toyota's looking good, but there's a lot of stout competition. As we said, 8 different manufacturers represented. We had 5 different makes in the top 5 on the grid, so the balance of performance is good. The playing field is strong, some great drivers, and just wonderful racing. Never disappoints.
Hopefully no damage to the gearbox of the Murillo Racing car. They were awfully stout early on, but had to pit after just a single lap of competitive racing. I think it was the 2nd lap total with a gearbox-related issue. Hope to see them on the grid tomorrow. And down at the bottom, we saw Patrick Gallagher and Matt Dalton listed as last, but I think we're all very grateful after a heavy hit on the 2nd lap of this race that Matt Dalton was able to emerge without any major injury.
Yeah, it's really high speed there as you come down the hill. You're approaching probably in a GT4 car about 115 miles an hour, right at the point where you're starting to slow it down, and that's where it all went wrong for him. So massive impact with the tire wall and the Armco.
We heard from Patrick Gallagher earlier. They do have a 2nd car on site. Matt Dalton runs in GT America as well in the GT4 class. So they've got that Aston here, and hopefully they can get that one ready to go. And we can see them in action for both races tomorrow. We saw Jason Hart climbing out of the car. Should be hearing from him relatively soon. He and Matt Travis, always a hoot in victory lane. Speaking from experience, you never quite know
Good luck, Amanda.
what you're going to hear from those two, but I'm not sure anyone has more fun than those two do. And we'll keep an eye out and hopefully hear from them in just a few moments, as well as the rest of our class winners. And I think Amanda has found Jason Hart. Indeed, she has.
Well, Jason, Calvin, and Ryan told me good luck already, but pressure was on you. You have a baby being born at any moment.
Right.
When you tell this story to that child later in their life, what will their birth story be?
Never been more nauseous in my life. Nervous about the baby, and I'm nervous about race performance. I've hardly eaten anything in 2 days. I can't thank my wife enough. I mean, all the pressure's on her, being at home, wondering if she's going to be going to the hospital by herself or not. Thank you for my mom for being there for her, and our little babies, Marlo and Adelaide, for looking after their mommy. Hopefully, baby stays inside for less than 24 hours. I'll be home.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations to the NOLA Sport tandem, picking up yet another win here at Circuit of the Americas, and we get to do it all over again tomorrow.